Tuesday, 6th August, calling the regular meeting, council meeting to order. And I call for quorum check.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick? Here. Councilmember Bulman? Here. Councilmember Goolsby?
Here.
Councilmember Putt? Here. Councilmember Rubal?
Here.
Councilmember Vaughan?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll have the invocation tonight by Councilmember Bulman, I'm sorry. And we'll go with the Pledge of Allegiance after that.
All right. Dear Lord, thank you for the privilege of calling this city our home. Thank you for the relationships we have formed, the experiences we have shared, and the lessons we have learned within these city limits. We are deeply thankful for your presence in our lives and in our city, and we trust in your love and guidance as we continue on our collective journey. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
City manager reports.
Yes, sir. I am going to ask Christina Blumenthal, our librarian, to come up, and she's just going to give you a real brief synopsis of our summer library program.
Good evening, everyone. So starting off really positive. We just concluded our summer reading program a couple weeks ago, and we had a very successful program this year. For those of you who aren't maybe familiar with what the libraries do for summer reading, this year we called it the Summer Adventure Experience. So we basically combine a lot of literacy, so keeping kids and young adults engaged in literacy reading throughout the summer. So while they're out from school, they can keep up with all of that. So when they go back, they're not falling behind. They call it the summer slide. And with that, we also do fun stuff. So a lot of educational programming things. So that's thinking from crafts to art to science. We did a lot of STEM programs to cooking, and that's for kids and adults. So this year, the staff in total offered 50 programs throughout 6 weeks. And then for families and children, we did, out of those 50 programs, 23 were geared towards them. And including that, we also had specific entertainers that came out. So we had a magician, a guy that had reptiles, stories and songs from Africa, so things like that. And we had teen programs, 6 of those, and they were cooking, and the teens loved it. So they learned how to cook crepes, tacos, and all those fun things. And adults, we did painting and a lot more craft-oriented things. So in total, our attendance for the year for everybody coming out was 1,857, and that was up 654. Last year, we had 1,203 attend our programs. So we're very happy to see an increase and happy to provide those programs. Got a lot of positive feedback from the community. So just wanted to share that with y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great news, actually. And the staff report.
Yes, sir. Thank you. No staff report.
Close that up. And citizens to be heard. This is time for citizens to come up and speak on any matter. Will not be discussed about the council or anything, but just the information only. And I have 3 people. First up is Mr. Mike Hayes. Come at the podium, please, and name and address.
All right. First off, my name is Mike Hayes. I'm at 310 Kitty Hawk Road, the big building that has Event Center on it, on Pat Booker and Kitty Hawk. Manage and run that place. Thank you guys for the mayor. Thank you for having me. Give council, give me a few minutes to make a couple of comments. I just want to bring to your attention that we do that's a venue rental place, but we renovated one side of the building and I turned it into an adult lounge. I call it very similar to an adult playground. Now, it's not a club, and I don't want nobody to think that it's a club, because that's the farthest thing from my mind. way we have it set up, we have TVs around the room. It's perfect for networking. Come in, you get off work, you just want to kind of unwind before you go home and deal with the kids or the spouse of any sort. You can kind of come there, unwind. We do have music playing at a very low level, so you can have conversation going on, and it's not disturbing to the conversation. We have an outdoor patio where you can sit out there. If you like to smoke a cigar or have whatever you like to do, you can sit out there. We have a TV outside as well, so you can enjoy being outside and watching TV as well. The main thing, the reason why we wanted to do it, I really wanted to do something that the community can enjoy. It'll be perfect for committee meetings. It'll be perfect. We had one member reach out to us, and they had their fantasy football draft there. So we wanted to be an advocate for the community and give you guys a place that fits, that you can kind of come and relax and unwind. Perfect, like again, perfect for networking. Sports, we'll have all the NFL package games on, so you can come by and watch the game. And you not have to be in a place like Dave and Buster's where it's all loud and people are boisterous. You can just kind of come somewhere and mellow out. You can bring your friends and still have a good time. That's the whole purpose of it. Again, it's not a club of any kind. I definitely want to stress that because people have asked me about it. So I just want to make sure I get that point across. I've had the honor of having the mayor and his wife out a couple of times to visit the place, and they give me some good feedback of things they may want to do there, such as a poker night, anything for community involvement, and that's really what we're aiming to do. So if you guys, y'all know where we are, got a event center on the big building, feel free to stop by anytime and check it out and let me know, give me some feedback, let me know if it works for you, or if you have anything that you want to do, any type of organizational event or anything like that you want to have there, we will be absolutely honored to have you. So by all means, if you have any questions, please let me know. And we look forward to you guys stopping by and visiting.
You write your phone number down for
Yes.
us?
While you're there, what time do you open?
Well, on the weekdays, Thursday, Friday, and Monday, we open at 3 p.m. And on Saturdays and Sundays, we open at 10 a.m. So we just kind of bracket around football season because that's really, part of the lounge effect as well.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. And the second up is Mr. Mitz, Ken Mitz.
Mayor, council member, city manager, thank you for this opportunity to speak tonight. What I might say might be a little controversial, and I apologize in advance, so I hope you don't hold it against me. It's just my opinions. My name is Ken Metz, and I live at 13410 Adonis. The following are some comments I have that are associated with the minutes of the budget workshop held on July 9, 2024. On page 6, the minutes state Ms. Turner clarified that the golf course does not have a formal business plan, and that if council so decides, consultants could be hired to create one. Staff reiterated that all golf course expenses were paid for, and the venue tax was only being utilized for general fund transfers, capital purchases, or leases related to capital. I'm disappointed that there is no business plan for the golf course, especially in light of all the controversies surrounding city funding of this enterprise. Without a business plan, how does the staff estimate revenues and expenses or decide how to recover from lost revenues associated with a new turf installation on the greens? I served on the golf committee for a couple of years and can tell you that it has been operating rather aimlessly over the years. It's not a dig at you, Sal, because I know you have limited money and limited authorities. A business plan is a good idea, especially since the city has decided to double down on supporting the golf course financially. On page 6, the minutes state Ms. Green confirmed the golf course would not be profitable without the venue tax revenue at this point, but it was making more profit than past years, and golf course staff had made conservative revenue estimates for fiscal year 2025. That does not instill confidence that it will become profitable anytime soon, and questions its decisions to continue to invest in this endeavor. How much green fee revenue did the golf course project for this current fiscal year? When they made those projections, did they account for the loss of revenues associated with the installation of the new grass for the greens? How much green fee revenue does the golf course now project for the fiscal year based on the loss of revenues associated with the installation of that new grass? On page 7, the minutes state approximately 90 to 95% of golfers at the golf course were from outside the city. Should the city continue to spend money on an enterprise that predominantly benefits people who live outside the city? On page 7, the average amount spent per golfer was said to be $102 per round. I think that was a misprint because it seems impossible. That would mean equivalent to a golfer eating 30 plus hot dogs, 25 plus hamburgers, or drinking 25 plus beers, or some combination thereof each time they play golf. What capital expenditures will be needed to support the golf course in the next 5 years to keep it competitive with other courses? I appreciate all the work city staff does in support of its residents. It often goes unnoticed. Regarding the efforts of the city staff who operate the golf course and the event center, I especially want to commend the efforts of Katie Brang. I think it's time for the city to account for the revenues and expenses of the golf course and the event center separately to get a truer picture of the golf course's annual losses. To conclude, cities have 20 years to make this thing profitable. I think it's time that we put it on the ballot and let the residents decide if they want to continue to invest in this enterprise. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spitz. Third, Ms. Eichelhart.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Kim Eichelhart. I live at 736 Garden Meadow Drive. I think it is awesome with all the different events that are happening at our library, and I know the hard work that is going into them, and I've heard really good things about the library. So I want to say that first and foremost, so I get it. But about the meeting room policy, if anyone wants to talk about where we're wasting time on city council, when we have to keep revisiting policies every 2 years, we're not going to get very far very fast. Okay, the last one was just approved 2 years ago by this body. That being said, I just want to talk to one point. That one point has to do with political candidates. I'm not sure why politics is such a bad topic in this city, and we're doing everything we can to kill it. Civic involvement is a plus. We should be encouraging it, not discouraging it. The way the policy reads, the proposed policy, if I'm reading it correctly, it says that all of y'all as incumbent elected officials can use that room to have a town hall meeting. So this year, let's say March, Councilman Vaughan decides to have a, quote, town hall meeting 5 weeks before his election. Great. Councilman Najarian could have done the same thing. But you, Councilwoman Putt, couldn't have done it. Nor could you, Councilmember Rubal. Nor could Mr. Ferguson, nor could Mr. Edwards. That, folks, does not pass the smell test. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Eichelhart. And there's no others? Okay. Coming into city manager's announcements.
Thank you, sir. I do have a few. I sent the email out, and I thank you for those who did respond about the group photo that we're going to be doing the next council meeting on the 20th. I hope I gave you sufficient notice to get your hair done, your shoes polished, or whatever it is that you're going to do for that photo, or not do. It's up to you. That will be at 6 o'clock. We will be trying to take the photo outside, so just remember that. We promised we were only going to really do 2 shots. We'll have them ready to go ahead of time, so we look forward to having you here. Kathy and Sam will be taking those photos for us, so we appreciate their effort. I did want to announce that we are in the process of overhauling our website because we are moving it to a new format. If you look at the website, we've kind of gone with the AP style, a lot more pictures, a lot less words, and maybe not so much data as you would find on one particular page. So again, the cleanup is happening now. As we transition, you'll have a new look in probably in that one with the same colors because they're on kind of our city colors. But it will be bright and fresh, and we hope we'll have a lot of widgets and pictures to help guide the people through rather than words. The other thing that is a part of our component of our website is Civic Ready. If you were in here earlier, you saw it was up on the screen. We had used the Blackboard Connect for many, many years. They are no longer a company. We were hoping to roll a lot of the data that we had in Blackboard Connect over to Civic Ready. It did not, so we really only have about 1,000 people signed up to Civic Ready right now. So you'll be seeing a massive marketing campaign in the gateway, in the Impact News. We'll have a postcard. We'll be doing lots of social media push, and at pretty much every facility reminding people to sign up for Civic Ready. If you want to know if the water is out in your area, you have to sign up for Civic Ready. If you want to know if there's a storm coming, you have to sign up for Civic Ready. And it's very intuitive and easy to sign up, and you can choose whether you get it by email or by text. So, and then they can opt themselves out. They don't need to call us to be opted out if they happen to. So we have that coming. I also did want to mention that coming up on August 20th is the 40th birthday for Chester's, which, you know, they've been kind of an icon here. They are having an event that evening. Unfortunately, none of us will be able to go because they're doing it at the Chester's over on 410, which is their original store. But on behalf of the mayor and the council, we will be sending in something to commemorate their big day. And that's everything I have there.
Okay, thank you. We'll start with the council members' announcements, and as tradition, we'll start with the invocation. Ms. Bulman.
I don't have anything for you tonight. Thank you, though.
Thank you. And we'll swing this way and go this way.
Oh, okay. First off, the library. I went a couple times this summer and amazed at how many people were there. It used to be kind of quiet. And we kept saying, what's going on? There's stuff going on. And they were just people at the library. And so congratulations. It was really nice to see that it was used that much. And Kitty Hawk Event Center, wow, I've seen the pictures Yolanda has put out there. And I think it's going to be really nice to have an adult place that doesn't have loud music that people can sit around and do things with. So welcome and thank you and great success, I hope. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I wanted to thank the city for helping the Citizens Police Academy host Casino Night. I felt like it was very successful. The golf course staff did a great job. The energy was very positive. Everybody had a good time, got lots of positive feedback. So thanks to the community for coming out and supporting that local nonprofit, helping to support our police department. I heard in passing, one of my favorite events that happened this year at the library was the Bridgerton Tea. And I heard that a couple of the younger age groups asked if they could have a tea. And instead of doing one tea, my understanding is they're going to do 2 teas for the girls. And I think that that's really special, and I really appreciate the fact that that effort is going into that. And so if you have anybody that's interested, look for those announcements, and that's all.
Councilmember Rubal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the previous meeting, I asked the support of council for reviewing budgets in 4 tiers, essential services and personnel, all basic resident service without amenities and non-essential enterprise operations. Then a 3rd tier for expenses and personnel costs for amenities and non-essential enterprise operations. And then finally, a tier with expenses for external staff training and the significant needs foreseen within the next 5 years. I didn't get a lot of support from council for that, to try to make sure that we always put our needs before our wants. That said, I've had the opportunity to meet with staff, particularly our finance director, and I'm very encouraged by her progress in where she has gone and where she wants to go, which includes the support for a 5-year plan for budgeting. I commend her efforts very, very much, and I think it's a start. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Good words. Councilmember Putt. Councilmember Goolsby.
I've got no bug pictures today. I did not do my homework. I'm so sorry.
I am too.
All right, that's all I got.
I was disappointed. I have a couple of items. Way back, first meeting, made mention that we should have a workshop. So we've made arrangements for Friday, 6th September, from 8 in the morning to 4:30, a calibration workshop, so we can be effective in conducting the people's business. And that will give us the opportunity in order to work together and best means forward for us all working together and agreeing to disagree wherever necessary. That is, please put that on your schedule for the 6th of September. Some more good news is the Water Department has received a grant of $100,000, and that's for meter replacements. And this is the second of two that we've actually we've put it forward, we've actually received over the last few years. So that's some good news going forward with that. And if you've gotten the gateway, it's slowly changing the contents. And Miss Kathy back there and team have been putting a few more, I guess, essays in there, some interviews, trying to make it more personal and concise to Universal City residents. So this is just a small change of what's to come. I have some big high hopes there. Thank you very much. Well, thank you. Got that over my schedule here, so we can close that out. And then we'll get to the consent agenda. All matters will be voted on unless someone has something to be pulled out. I'll take a recommendation, take a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
I just had one thing. Was this the budget where Mr. Mitt said there was not the budget, but the minutes where he said there was a typo?
We'll go back and look at that, but you can approve it with any staff changes. Thank you, sir.
Good. Any discussion? Call for a vote.
Councilmember Putt,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman. Aye. Councilmember Goolsby,
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal,
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
That carries. The next item is a no tab executive session. We're going to break into the break room for a few minutes. It's at 6:55, 7:55, and we'll come back in.
Yeah, you need to read the caption, sir.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
then state the time, if you would.
I'm sorry, you want me to restate the time?
Yeah, pursuant to, read it, and then state the time.
Pursuant to the Texas Code, Government Code, Section 551071, consultation with attorney to discuss and deliberate pending litigation titled Branford individually and his next friend of EC A minor, City of Universal City, Playcore Incorporated in the 45th Judicial District Court, Bexar County. Reconvene in open session, take action if needed on any item pertaining to our list of executive session section of this agenda. And we are convening at 6:55.
6:55 is good.
Okay, it's 7:20. We're reconvening the open session. There's no action being taken pertaining to the it's listed in the executive session, the agenda. So, no action being taken. Moving over to tab D, resolution 889J 2024, resolution deleting in its entirety the 2012 interlibrary loan policy, adopting the 2024 interlibrary loan policy for the municipal library of Universal City.
Thank you, Mayor. As you indicated, this policy has not been updated for 10 years. We borrow books from other libraries, they borrow books from us. Now we all have the same policy. It should make it very clear to anybody who's borrowing a book in the library policy what the expectations are. So it's here for your approval this evening.
Move for approval.
Second. Discussion? Call for a vote.
Councilmember Vaughn,
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman,
Aye.
Councilmember Putt,
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Tab C, Resolution 889. K, 2024, Resolution amending the library meeting room policy.
Thank you, Mayor. Library staff and the Library Advisory Council are always working to try to improve their communication with the public for use of the library meeting rooms. And so they have met and gone over this policy and some recommendations before City Council. As you know, Ms. Blumenthal is here and she can answer any questions, or I can answer the questions you might have regarding the policy. Thank you.
I move to postpone until we have a more thorough public meeting space policy.
I'm sorry, until when?
Until we have a more public meeting space policy along with it.
Public meeting space. This is a public meeting space.
Only for the library. So I just made a motion. If anybody second it, we can discuss it, or if they don't want to second it, then we can.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Yes, Mayor. I understand Ms. Blumenthal wanted to control the library meeting room. I think that it makes sense, and I appreciate her taking the initiative to try to clean up the policies. I think there's a issue though with us not having a lot of public meeting space, and so I think the library meeting room is a really great meeting space, and so we have to make a decision. Do we want that to be part of the library that's under the purview of the director of the library, or is that more of a public meeting space that's available for everybody to use? One of the problems with the policy is that it gives the director complete control to bump somebody if she has a program or something, which makes sense if that wasn't our only primary public meeting space. So if we had something that was a little bit more comprehensive that allowed what other facilities we have available that people could use, then I think that would make sense. Otherwise, we're kind of losing the ability to have those public meetings at that facility. So if we looked at maybe Cimarron, Clubhouse, the golf course, and maybe the library, if the library could say, like Mondays is a good day to have public meetings in the library, and Tuesday and Wednesday is the least used Cimarron days, maybe those could be public meeting spaces on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the golf course can be Thursday, or whatever the the not often used times of those places to give us some coverage for public meetings without them worrying about being bumped, I think would be wise. So if we had that, then I think giving the library director more opportunity to control the library would make more sense. But if it's just the library as our main public meeting space, then I don't think it makes sense to give that much control over bumping meetings if somebody wants to have it.
May I ask a question? May I ask a question on that, sir? Are you proposing that the other non-library meeting spaces that would be potential would come up under the library for their control for meeting rooms?
I think that'd be something for discussion. I haven't thought out who would be the primary person controlling the rent, I guess the reservations. But if everybody was participating and saying these are the days that are least used and the times that are least used so that they could be available for a public meeting. If somebody wanted to have a candidate forum or whatever Ms. Eichelhart brought up that might be available to have at that meeting or at that location. And we had at least some coverage of the week to say, if you have a public meeting you want to do on Mondays, then that's the library. But the rest of the week, the library director has absolute control. And if you want to do it, you can ask her, but she may not have it available for you on those days. But if we spread it, like I can't imagine Cimarron's heavily used the whole week. So that would also be a great place to have some meetings. So if we could do that and have it in there, then this policy makes more sense.
Anybody else have questions?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Essentially, reflecting on that, on page 4, identified scheduling must be made by paid library staff. And then later on page 5, it says the meeting room shall not be scheduled during library hours. So I guess when would it be a public meeting room by this revised policy? Yes.
So when it says by library staff, you know, the library has a lot of volunteers. What that is saying is that you can't go to one of the library staff volunteers and say that you want to put a reservation in to use the library for your personal use. You have to use a staff member for that. And one of the reasons it says, oh, well, the library is open is because the library is using it for all of the library programs they have. So when it's not in use for specialized library programs, which they have, as you know, they have 50 of them, 52 of them in 6 weeks. They have library programs going on all week, whether it's a senior activity, an adult activity, a teen activity, pre-K, story time. So they're always using that for their own events. When they're not using it, then it's open for the public to use unless it is commandeered by the Bexar County Elections Department. They have the authority to state which place they want to hold it at. They move from here down there. And so, I don't know, I'm guessing I don't know how many months, because they use it for early voting, they use it for voting, they use it for runoffs. And so they get priority over public use too. So there are a lot of times when the library is available. There are a lot of regular groups that meet down there on a monthly, sometimes a weekly basis. I don't know how many groups that you have. But there are a lot of times when the facility is used after library hours, when it's not in use by the library. If the library doesn't have something on a particular Wednesday and a group wants to book it, it's open for them to book. But it's a library. They have library activities. The meeting room needs to be used for library activities first. That's why it was built.
Are paid staff available at all times when the library is open?
Yes, there's always paid staff at the library. They may be assisting another customer, they may be on the phone, they may be checking books in or whatever. But there's always library staff on there. It's never staffed 100% by volunteers.
And there's no time when staff might be on vacation and there might be again?
Well, staff for sure goes on vacation, but when they go on vacation, there are other library staff there to fill in for them.
Wasn't the case, personal case. Thank you.
Councilman? You had your hand up?
Did I?
No comment? No.
Maybe it was a hot flash.
In that case, then,
I think the confusion, or at least for me, is it's either a public meeting room or it's a library room. I mean, for me, it's one or the other, because obviously if the library needs it and the library wants it for all of its programs, that's great. Then it's a library room and it should fall underneath the library. But calling it a public meeting space is where I have an issue, because if it's a public meeting room, then it should be a public meeting room. Those should be two separate and very different things. So I think I like Councilman Vaughan's idea of, if you're going to take away a public meeting room, because it's just a city service that we should have. I mean, there should be a space in our city somewhere where people can rent something if they want to do something. And this is just incredibly restrictive. I mean, to me, I think this is incredibly restrictive from even what it was 2 years ago. So I'm just trying to figure out, is there another place, like you said, Cimarron Park or somewhere else, where we can offer it to the public for free and not have such a restrictive, it just doesn't sit well with me.
So you're kind of stuck between things. I get where you're going. You're stuck between two things. You say Cimarron Park and offer it for free. Well, people pay to use that. So how can you offer it for free on one day and then make everybody else pay it for it if it's not that day? Because then everybody's just going to want it for that day. The library room, if it is available, is free of use. There's no charge. But the Cimarron Clubhouse is for parties and anniversaries and all the things that you can't do at the library, right? They don't want food, they don't want drink, and all that other stuff in there because it's a library and they've got carpet. So you can't have it something free on one day and then make them pay for it.
But can you, if it's not one of those things? Can we have a public meeting space for people at Cimarron that follow, that isn't a birthday, a party, whatever, and then it would be free of use?
There are
them
people
a separate.
who rent it for non-party purposes as well. Some people will hold it and they'll have like a sales seminar there.
there's nothing for the public. I'm trying to find something that covers the library so she can still do what she wants to do, but also we're not taking something away from the residents in such a restricted way.
We're not taking anything away from them. We have the room, and it is for the library use, and they have offered, when they're not using it, to make it available. So we're not taking anything to the public. We're giving them the ability to use the room when it's not being utilized.
Well, we're making it more restrictive though, because now you can't have a candidate forum there. Now you can't have a candidate, several of us had candidate
So be
events there.
careful, it
So
doesn't say that you can't have a candidate forum. It says nonpartisan. In other words, the Republican Party cannot go down there and have a rally. The Democratic Party cannot go down there and have a rally. But if you are a nonpartisan group and you want to go in and you want to talk about a particular issue, we'll say homelessness, you can do that. That is a public meeting, but it's nonpartisan.
I mean, it says right on here though, like you can't have political campaign events. I'm pretty sure specifically on here it says you can't do a candidate forum.
No, it doesn't say you cannot do a candidate forum. It says unless. Give me a second, I'm going to find that
Okay,
section.
because I'm going through it. And
I'm reading, it says you can't have town hall meetings held by current elected officials. Which I think.
No.
yeah.
It is designed for general informational, cultural, and educational needs. Acceptable uses of the library meeting includes, but is not limited to the following. And then it says, it includes nonpartisan political events. And then it gave an example. If you want, we can take out the example. And the example was, such as a nonpartisan town hall meeting held by current elected officials. Doesn't necessarily mean it's universal city officials. It could be Bear County officials. It could be whatever, but it needs to be a nonpartisan group. As an entity, we don't take a particular side on politics. Our job is to remain neutral. The library's job is to remain neutral. We're not a place for the Republican or Democratic committees to meet and to hold their caucus forums. There's plenty of other places that they can do that, but they should not be doing it at a public place.
It says right here.
And we've had the forums down there at the library before.
Oh, no,
And
but
they
now
were
it says
nonpartisan.
meetings that directly support or benefit a political issue or candidate is not approved.
Yes, that's because you're using something now for you're using public property for personal gain.
I get that, but I'm saying.
We never allow people to use public property free of charge for a personal gain. If they were going to do that, we would recommend that they rent out the Cimarron Clubhouse, or they recommend going to the golf course and renting a room there, because now they are doing it for profit for political gain.
All right, I'm just saying this is different than what it was before, because as someone who ran for city council and had their campaign kickoff at the library, I used that room. So I'm saying now that's not, like, that's what I'm saying, now it's not available. So if a candidate wanted to have a candidate forum, you're saying a candidate cannot have a candidate forum because they can't rent the room.
A candidate forum is everybody, it's not a candidate. A candidate forum is typically a panel of people like yourselves sitting up there and having it. We have had those. I'll let you address it.
Yeah, I can speak to that a bit. So we also, besides following some of the political, city stuff, we have standards from the American Library Association and from the Texas State Library Archives. So we're following that guidance. And then Seguin and Shirts have the same policies. They never allowed political anything. So what you're seeing here is closely modeled to Shirts' policy that they have right now. So it's not because we don't want people there, it's because we are a neutral, we're Switzerland, basically. So
I appreciate that, but Shirts also has several places where they have several event spaces. They have a senior center, they have several more spaces than what the city has. So I guess that's my whole point.
And for a fee, you
have
rent those. And for the Shirts Civic Center, it's a rental facility. It's just like our golf course minus the greens. That is a rental space for them.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah,
I think having meeting space available to residents is kind of a nice to have, but I don't feel like that's the city's responsibility to make sure everybody has a place to have meetings. I love the fact that the library is making it available. I do understand the need for Switzerland, you know, to kind of be neutral. But I also, your suggestion, Councilmember Vaughan, is I'm not sure. I think we need to get into the space of having kind of like a universal space for meeting rooms for the community. I mean, I think we can say these are places available if you want to inquire about them if they're available, and going to I think the Cimarron goes through parks. Is that?
Yes, it's in the online.
You know, so to keeping those in the areas that they need to be so that it doesn't I think if we overlap meeting rooms, it will get complicated, especially since Randy's renting them out for other events and stuff. And again, I think it's a nice to have for our residents. I don't feel like it's a must have. There's other restaurants, there's other party rooms, there's the event center that,
Kitty Hawk.
right, Kitty Hawk Event Center that is available. I know those all come at a cost, but I feel like if you're going to be hosting events that you are wanting to have a meeting space, that might be something you need to look at as incurring some cost. So that's all.
Mr. Vaughan.
Just one final comment. There's the use issue that Councilmember Bulman brought up, but then also just the fact that anybody can be preempted at any time in like the first paragraph. So there's really, I would never want to rent it because you could take me at any time. I'm sure you would prefer not to, but if you had something sexier come up and I've got an event there, you say, well, Bill's got to go. So I think it just kind of neuters it and it makes it no longer a meeting room space. And if we're fine with that, then that's fine. But I think that's basically makes it a library and nothing else.
And I think where that comes in is primarily has to do with the elections. Because if we go through the election process, we have no way of knowing whether there's going to be a runoff or not. And I can tell you, if there is, they are going to preempt anybody who is on there. And when people are renting the space, they're aware of the fact that there may be a runoff and they may not be able to use. I can't think of very many cases other than that when anybody's ever been preempted from using the facility. I mean, even if I were going to use it for a city event or a city council meeting or whatever it happens to be, I would call and work through the same scheduled process as anyone else. Just like if we were going to have a retirement or party or something like we did for Mayor Williams, we fit it into Katie's schedule. We don't preempt anyone. It's not good business for the city. I can tell you that the preemption is really runoff elections. Nothing more.
You want to modify your
I'll stick with my motion and we can vote on it.
Okay, so you restate the motion.
The motion is to postpone to a future meeting to be accompanied with a public meeting space policy of what facilities are available.
Okay. Call for a vote.
Councilmember Vaughan,
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick,
No.
Councilmember Goolsby,
No.
Councilmember Putt,
No.
Councilmember Rubal.
Aye.
We have a tie. Mayor Maxwell.
Yes, I am going to I'm going to approve this for a temporary pause. And can we have a draft for consideration at the next meeting?
I apologize. I don't know what's being asked of staff. So we have a library meeting room policy, and now you're asking for a public policy. We have a public policy already for Wagon Crossing. We have a public policy, a contract that we use for people who rent the clubhouse. So I don't know what policy you would want beyond that.
That's good. That's the reason why I think we need to postpone this for one cycle, and we'll discuss and see what we come back with, and come back in with either an answer of yes or no, that we can do that. And
Okay. And it might be just a matter of tweaking a few words. We'll look into that in August 20th. Just making sure nobody's on vacation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, tab D, budget presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Again, I want to thank all of the council members for coming in for your individual budget meetings, for sitting through the workshop, and then for those of you who came back for another meeting, it was very helpful for staff, and we're very thankful that you recognize that the staff and the council are on the same team and you're willing to spend so much time with us. So this evening we are just doing a budget presentation, and then we're going to do after that a tax rate presentation. So there's no voting tonight. We're not asking you to vote. We are really trying to gear this presentation more towards speaking to the audience and the citizens as a whole, so that they can hear kind of what you've heard and what we've been working through. And then at the end of the presentation, if you have questions regarding the budget, we'll answer those because obviously it's educational for the public at large. And then from there, we'll go into the tax rate presentation. Again, give the full presentation. Some feedback from you would be very helpful. And that's what we're looking for this evening. We're looking for feedback from you because when we come back in September, we're going to actually have a record vote on the tax rate. That's what's going to get published in the newspaper. And then sometime after that, we'll be having other budget public hearings and votes. And so all that's going to happen very, very fast. So just some consensus, guidance, recommendation from council. Rebecca, clear guidance and consensus from council would be very beneficial for your staff. With that, I will turn it over to Ms. Green.
Thank you.
And are you doing the slide or you want us to do that for you?
Mayor? All right.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I also want to thank you all for coming in and speaking with us. It was helpful to understand where all of your points of view are and the direction that you want the city to go in. Now you will, I also want to thank staff as well as Kathy Williams, Sam, and Regina because they helped us a lot in getting the budget document together. And just in case you didn't notice, you can actually click on the hyperlink and it'll take you to the page on the document, which for whatever reason was pretty exciting for me. Now, we did not have the rates available when we sent the budget over, but the page should have been added, or you should have it, that says that the no new revenue rate of 0.519382 is what would be required to support the budget as is. Next slide. Thank you. This is a picture of all of the funds involved with the entire budget of this city. And if you look at the very bottom, you'll see that the utility fund, including all their CIP costs, as well as the general fund, including the general fund CIP costs, is more than 82% of the overall budget that is that the city is trying to approve today or will be approving. Right, so the budget includes a cost of living adjustment of 5% for existing staff. A department has been created to identify costs associated with city council expenses just to give council an idea of what their cost is and for more transparency for the public. The expenses that were previously budgeted in the admin department for the EDC have now been moved to the EDC budget, which gives us a better picture of what the admin budget should have been. And then we've added a full-time employee, which would be a diesel certified mechanic for vehicle maintenance, which will help offset some of the costs of the diesel repairs that have to be done within the city. Parks and Recreation has a part-time senior activity coordinator that has been budgeted, and the GIS analyst that was budgeted in the stormwater fund has now been moved to development services within the general fund. So the next page shows the general fund budget, revenues and expenditures, and as you'll see, the revenues and expenditures are equal, which means that that is a balanced budget. 74% of our anticipated or 74% of our anticipated revenue comes from ad valorem, sales tax, and other tax revenues. That's significant to the city. The general fund consists of 16 departments, and most of the operating maintenance activities of the city are within these departments. The general fund is where such services as public safety, including police and fire, infrastructure maintenance, general services, and public health services, which is development services, as well as outdoor recreation facilities and development, which is our parks and recreation. And here you'll see that public safety, which is again police and fire, make up 44% of the general fund budget. General services, along with parks and recreations, is the second largest budget, making up 21%. That means that 12 departments account for only 35% of the budget. And we're just going to highlight the departments that are new or that have material changes from the 2024 budget. So again, City Council now has their own department, and their budget is estimated at $390, and it consists of our 6 council members and our mayor. And again, it was created in order for better transparency for the city. The admin department, as mentioned, the City Council and the EDC expenses were moved to better represent the expenses within this department. There were also some other expenses moved which were related to the emergency phone service, AT&T. FirstNet, thank you. Those expenses were moved. The expenses related to the printers that the city has were moved because they're all the same printer. They can move within whatever department within the city. And I believe those are the only 2 things that were moved out. But it did make a difference of $817,000 on that budget. Development services did see a slight change, which increased, but that is related to the GIS analyst that was moved from stormwater. The GIS analyst requires certain certifications as well as trainings that, again, affected the budget a bit. Total budgeted expenditures for finance is $537,975, a decrease from the 2024 budget. The primary reason that it's decreased is because version 10 software, which is the software that we use for our accounting, will use Encode, forgive me, which is part of Tyler Tech. We currently have version 9. Version 10 software, to transfer to that version, the cost outweighed the benefit for us at this time. We may look into it again in the future, but at this time it's not worth the cost. And if you hadn't noted, the audit costs have been cut in half from previous years, and that's due to the finance department really diligently working on their, working toward ensuring that we have a clean audit. General services had an increase from 2024 budget, but that's related to street maintenance, signal maintenance, and engineering services. I know that Randy addressed some of the questions during the workshop, and I hope that they gave a pretty clear picture. Parks and Recreation did see a difference. There was a bit of an increase, but the majority of that is related to grant application costs. So if there's a cost to apply, and then we have a match that's required, that's where the majority of that money is coming, that money is allocated, is for those. They also added that part-time senior activity coordinator. They had an increase in ground maintenance and some of the park improvements. The police department actually saw a bit of a decrease in their payroll, and it is due to the tenured staff retiring, as well as overtime being reduced due to the implementation of the 12-hour work schedule. I know that in the budget, we have budgeted right now $250,000 because the 12-hour was just implemented a few months ago. So until we actually see the true picture, we didn't want to adjust that for that expense. The fire department saw a bit of an increase, but it is related to SCBA? Thank you, sir. SCBA, the AED defibrillators that they're purchasing, and EMS life packs. Their overtime has been divided between what is required by federal law and what is actually just calculated through the city for estimating expenses. And the line item for the fire marshal expenses has been added per the TCOL requirement. There is also some building maintenance that's needed to the roof and some other items, and that's the only reason for their change. Vehicle maintenance We have again added a full-time mechanic with a diesel certification. The city has approximately 200 items that are diesel, that would need repair, and we don't currently have a mechanic with that certification. Also within this department, there was an addition to expenses for oils and lubricants. What happens is they purchase barrels, so if at the end of the year they have enough, they don't necessarily have to purchase them again the next year, but then the following year they would have to restock the supply. Thank you. The animal shelter saw a difference of approximately $175,000, and it is primarily related to Meraki cameras that are going to be placed, or we have planned to place around the building, the AC unit that has to be replaced, and the vehicle that's going to be purchased. So moving on to utility, stormwater, and golf course, which are all enterprise funds. The utility administration added a part-time utility clerk. The water sewer budgeted mobile and other equipment for capital purchases. But again, we see it is a balanced budget. Stormwater saw a decrease in their budget, again related to the GIS analysts. That was moved from the development services into the general fund. Moved from stormwater to development services in the general fund. Okay, golf course. Golf course receives its revenues from the items listed on the right. If you note that the venue tax is approximately currently 26% of that budget. But it is also a balanced budget. If you go to the next page, I just wanted to show that this is how the venue tax is currently divided. We anticipate receiving $1.8 million in revenue. Transfer to the golf course will be $1.175, and then transfer to the general fund will be $650,000. And of the golf course venue tax revenue, they're going to be using $565,000 on capital improvement, overhead transfer of $325,000. And golf course operations, which is the leases that were mentioned earlier this evening, that we are currently paying for the golf course. So that's basically how those revenues are used. Golf course expenditures here again are listed. And again, it is a balanced budget because the revenues exceed the expenditures just slightly. Golf course capital improvements that we mentioned a few slides ago are the parking lot resurfacing and expansion, resurface of the sun deck and wraparound, the painting and refreshing of the exterior of the building, which has not been done in 11 years, and then the kitchen lounge, which is going to be updated. And then we come to debt service. Debt service for the general fund is supported by ad valorem tax. We have some money in the fund balance that we'll be using in this fiscal year, and we anticipate the interest at approximately $80,000. This covers the expenses, and again, is a balanced budget at $2,168,380. And then here we just listed out again for debt service for utility fund. It's again a balanced budget because we use water revenues that pay for it. So our water sales revenue is what supports the bonds that are listed below. Capital improvement, and I apologize, I had been asked by one of the council members to list out the streets that were being worked on, and I placed it in the budget but neglected to place it on the slide. It is in the cover letter. It's in the cover letter to the budget document as well. But again, it is a balanced budget. We anticipate, well, when is your completion? Tell you what, just forgot. It's a balanced budget. Sorry. I know I had a question, but it went away. So capital improvements for utility funds are listed here as well, and these are anything related to water or sewer. And then stormwater, obviously that is going to be stormwater capital improvements. Now special revenues, we have 13 different funds for special revenues. These are either mandated by federal or state law, or they are self-imposed. We're going to present for ARPA and the venue tax mostly because those are the two funds that we receive the most questions on. So for the ARPA fund, there we go, thank you. For the ARPA fund, the items have to be obligated by the end of 2024 and expended, 2025, and then expended by 2026, thank you. So currently we have $800,000 that we're going to be putting into the capital replacement fund in order to start saving for the fire trucks. And the mental health officers that are part of the police and the fire department, part of their salaries are paid out of this fund. And then the venue tax, we're anticipating $1,825,000 in revenue. Of that, we'll be transferring 1.175 to the golf course, and then for the general fund, $650,000. And just to conclude, I am hoping, and I realize that this is the budget that was presented in the workshop. We did listen to every council member what their concerns were, but these are the items that are needed by staff in order to perform our jobs. If council wants us to reduce the budget in order to meet whatever tax rate that is going to be set, please allow staff to make those decisions on what we feel we can postpone to the next fiscal year. Because ultimately, we're the ones doing the work. Anyway, thank you. Oh, questions?
Randy, I have a question for you. In this budget, can you tell me how Persia's going?
How Persia's going?
Yeah.
Yes.
First the green, then the street.
Yes, right now we have it budgeted, we funded money for this year in the stormwater. We're gonna fund it again with this approved budget. That will start our drainage portion of the Persia project. And then once we have that in, when we do the street bonds, then we're gonna reconstruct the entire street. Because that's the last segment that we have to do is put the drainage in before we want to go in and put in the road.
So drainage first?
Drainage first. Design and engineering done.
Yes, we've already, it's ready to go.
Okay.
That term's shovel ready, that's shovel ready. So we just need, the cost came in more than we anticipated. So we're having to put the money aside, get it funded again this coming year.
And on the street bond reconstruction, you started the engineering and design. How far are you into that for the Churchwood, Crosswood, Gamblewood, Eastwood, Medicine Rock, Old Converse Road, Persia, and Travis Drive, and the 600 block of West Right?
So they have done the geo work on it. They've done the survey work. So with those two items completed, now they can start the design work. So they're between 30 to 40% into the work right now.
Sorry, a resident asked.
Okay.
Can I ask one more question? Not with you, Randy, sorry. But police chief, I noticed in your budget, she said, I wrote it, hold on, that you were gonna have overtime reduced with the implementation of a 12-hour work schedule. Is that gonna hurt you getting employees, like police officers? I always heard like police officers like overtime, that's like kind of a big deal.
No, I mean, I still think that there'll be overtime there, it'd just be a reduction. We've had substantial amounts of overtime in the past. Of course, we were also working on a lighter staff than normal. We were down 8 officers at one point about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. A crisis that all police departments had dealt with throughout the country. And so with the change to the 12-hour shift, again, it's early in that effort, but we expect to drop down, but we'll level off. It won't. It's not to suggest it'll go away. This is still not a perfect science, and you can catch a late call that keeps you here late at the end of your shift, just like any other schedule. We just expect that this will bring it down some and then level off. But no, as far as hurting recruiting, no, the profession's hurting as a whole from a lack of police officers, and then of course competitive salaries have gotten really difficult to keep up with. Highway Patrol, for instance, just did a lateral transfer for officers with 4 years, abbreviated academy, 3.5 months, $110,000 a year.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's 50,000 more than our, I mean, that's, you can't do that. So that will hurt us more than not being able to offer overtime. But we also have the events at the golf course, step program where we work traffic. So there's other options, but that great question. We appreciate the concern.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Good question.
Any other questions?
Don't sit down there.
I'm sorry, if you could direct the questions to me. Go ahead, sir.
Has the 12-hour work day for our officers, was that a unilateral decision, like the king said, we're going to work 12 hours, or was
Well,
that a?
schedule works for everyone, right? We all have, some have children, some don't, some have spouses, some don't, some have babysitter issues, some don't. So it was an adjustment for everyone. But I have to say, I think overall, it's been a very positive experience for them.
And there's no kings here, truly. No, I know. I want to illustrate something though. Chief and I recognized early on that we don't do the job that they do anymore, right? Our window is closed. They should have a say in what the shifts are going to work. We put it to the department, and overwhelming majority wanted to do 12s. And worth noting, the handful that didn't want to, Councilman, you couldn't get them off it now if you tried. So, that could change too with the wind. But for now, it was a line level decision for the most part. Good question. Yes, sir.
Ms. Putt?
Has nothing to do with this. Could we
Yes,
turn
sir.
off these fans? I feel like we're being blown out of the room here.
If you don't mind.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just a comment to the chief with regard to response times. We had a high-speed chase recently in my neighborhood with a car crashing 2 doors down with a masked gunman escaping, being tased over fences and others running other directions. And the response was quite amazing of the police department. It did take an 80-year-old lady, however, to find the gun. But it truly was an amazing response, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Roger.
Clearly, I should move to your neighborhood for excitement. Thank you. Any other questions regarding the budget while we're standing here?
Doesn't look like there's any other questions.
All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to the tax rate. As you know, there are certain tax rates that we are required by law to present to you. Tax rates are a very unusual animal. There is a calculation worksheet that is used. It's complicated to say the least. It is done twice by the appraisal district before it is sent to us. And then we check their numbers. I'm going to say kudos to Ms. Green. She checked their numbers multiple times, claimed to them that she thought they were incorrect, and they said no. She pushed the subject, and they did finally recognize that they had made a miscalculation. So I want to give her all the credit for doing that. So I believe Mateo is going to come up. You've all seen him before. He works with Ms. Green, and he's going to present to you the numbers that we are required by law, and then we're going to have some discussions with you on what we believe would be an appropriate tax rate to support the budget that we put before you this evening. And then after that, we'll have lots of discussion. Thank you, Ms. Moore.
Yeah, thank you. So just jumping right into it. Ad valorem, property tax is considered the most important source of revenue for Texas local governments. The Texas Municipal League has reported that property taxes represent the greatest source of revenue for a city's general fund. A tax rate calculation worksheet is prepared by the County Tax Assessor's Office each year. The information is reviewed by city staff to ensure accuracy. 3 rate options are calculated within the worksheet. The rates are no new revenue, voter approval, and de minimis rate. No new revenue represents the tax levy that would be almost equal to the prior year collection. Voter approval is the total of the no new revenue, M&O, times 3.5% plus the unused increment rate and the debt service rate. The de minimis rate is the sum of the no new revenue rate that, when applied to the city's current total value, would result in an additional $500,000 tax levy, plus the city's current debt rate. Staff is recommending a no new revenue rate for the fiscal year 2025 budget. which when examined would equate to a monthly expense of 16 cents per $100,000 of taxable value and $1.88 per $100,000 of taxable value annually. When you take the average taxable value of a home in Universal City into account, citizens are looking at 46 cents a month for a home with a taxable value of $290,000, totaling in an additional cost of $5.46 annually. This is the equal to the cost of a cup of coffee, a hamburger, though probably not one as big as the one you see there, a loaf of bread, or a box of cereal. With that being said, the effect of a 1 cent decrease on city revenue would be equal to approximately $200,000 of revenue to the city. This reduces the city's operating revenue by approximately $200,000 per every 1 cent of decrease. When it comes to homeowners, the no new revenue rate represents a cost of $43.28 per $100,000 of taxable value. The rate decrease of 1 penny to a 0.0509382 would equate to $42.45 per $100,000 of taxable value. The monthly savings would be 83 cents per $100,000 of taxable value, and the annual savings would be $10 per $100,000 of taxable value. With that being said, when you boil it down, the no new revenue rate recommended by staff would cost the average household $125.52 per $290,000 of taxable value. With a 1 cent decrease to the tax rate, that would represent $123.10 per $290,000 of taxable value. This is a difference of $2.42 and equates to a savings of $29 annually. Meanwhile, that same 1 cent will cost the city $200,000 in operating revenue.
So a lot of numbers, a lot of words, it's very complicated. I already saw several of you gloss over, I apologize. So let's get down to numbers. Our tax rate last year was 5.17499. Let's just say 5.17. And the no new revenue taxes rate this year that has been through the worksheet is 0.519. So you're talking, how does that work out? 0.002 is the difference between the current tax rate and the no new revenue tax rate. And the budget that we went over with you was done at the 0.519. So this is where council will have their discussion on what you would like to offer as a tax rate, and then if there are any changes that need to be made, staff will have all of that worked out between now and our next meeting when you'll actually vote on the tax rate.
Okay, open for discussion. Vaughan?
I concur that the numbers look right, the math looks right. So I think the no new revenue, as you say, gives you what's valid in the budget. Just to put it in perspective, the difference between some of the rates that you have here, like the no new revenue and the adopted tax rate from last year, if we were just to adopt last year's tax rate, it's a difference of like $25,000 in revenue. It's very minimal. And also, the presentation talked about taking a penny off and saving $200,000. That's like 1% of the general fund budget. And I would remind everybody that we are choosing to give the golf course $1.1 million in venue tax. We had our bond council come, and they said we can spend it on the parks operating budget. So we have a decision as a council. Do we want to continue to give it $1.1 million in venue tax, or do we want to use that for the general fund to help offset some of the parks budget and offset our tax rate a little bit? So we're just talking $200,000 to cut a penny, and we've got 1.1 available. I'd also point out that in the budget on page 2, there's a discussion of how much money is available in all the funds. And what's presented for the golf course at the end of this year is $3.5 million left over from prior years. So it has money available to it. It doesn't necessarily need the 1.1 this year. It can use the money that it has. So that's our decision. Do we want to continue to give money to the golf course, or do we want to give it to our taxpayers? And I would suggest that we give it to our taxpayers. And then just one last comment. You know, we talked about in the presentation some of the changes that people are going to have to pay more, and it seems like a very small amount to $5, which is fine. if we weren't already at a high tax rate. And so if you look at Bexar County and our surrounding Guadalupe County partner cities, of the 29 cities, we're still the 6th highest tax rate among them. You know, at last year's rate of the 51.75, you know, you've got Seguin at 50 cents, you've got Shirts at 48, you've got Converse at 42, Live Oak at 38. And I'm not even going to mention Selma, but it's lower than us. So I think we need to be continuing to work to get that down to where we're competitive with our neighbors. One last comment. The presentation was geared towards homeowners, but you also have to acknowledge that this affects the businesses in your city too. So some of our shopping centers are our largest taxpayers, and those are a big number. And so they're not going to be saving $5, they're going to be saving quite a bit more than that. That's going to help bring in businesses. So I really think we should consider reducing it. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Vaughan, thank you. I appreciate always your clarity and your insight and understanding of the budget and the numbers. So I do want to just address a couple of things. And the first one is the venue tax. So yes, it is 1.8 million. And you are correct, they did tell us that we could transfer some to the general fund, particularly for parks operations. So the general fund includes $650,000 of the venue tax, and it is in the parks budget. But of the 1.1 million that is going to the golf course, another 325,000 of that is coming back for administrative overhead that is done by the finance department and other departments. So of the 1.8 million in the venue fund, $1 million of it is going back into the general fund. In previous years, none of it went back. So we've already made $1 million difference in it there. And then I know some of you were at the elected officials workshop where we had a discussion regarding ad valorem cities versus sales tax cities, Selma being a sales tax city, Live Oak being a sales tax city. And what that means is yes, they do have a very low tax rate, but it's because their sales tax makes up the difference. As Universal City continues to promote and expand its business opportunities, our sales tax revenue should go up and we should become less dependent upon ad valorem tax rate, but we're not there yet. And I think it's not always good to compare ourselves to our neighbors. And I can just use, personal examples. We all have neighbors. They have an income based on maybe, let's say, we'll use the military. Somebody retired as a lieutenant colonel, and they have a particular base pay. And maybe somebody 2 doors down only retired as a major, and that is what their retirement pay is. So you can't compare their lifestyles because their revenues and the rank and everything else and the needs that they have and the decisions that they've had are different. So we have to remember we don't always have to be like every other city, but I think if you went in and looked at our sales tax revenue and our property tax revenue, you find that we're probably a lot more similar to other cities than you think we are. So again, just an apples and oranges thing. I don't know if you want to address any of that.
No. So Mrs. Turner is correct. For instance, if you take the sales tax that's earned by Live Oak and you compare it to the sales tax that we earn, it's $3 million or more over what we get for sales tax. So, and even if we were to take the million from the golf course, we still would be missing $2 million. We still cannot compare ourselves to the other cities like that. Unfortunately, they have more sales tax than we do. But I might caution council too, that yes, some of the funds can be used to offset the cost of the Parks and Rec. But with grants coming into Parks and Rec, you want to be careful not to double dip with grants and also offsetting with that tax.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vaughan.
Any other questions? Mr. Vaughan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So basically for a $300,000 house, we're talking about $1,557 yearly.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Mr. Vaughan.
In a yearly tax. Essentially multiplying the difference between that and the sum over a 10-year period is going to be about $10,000, roughly. $10,000 compared to Selma and a little less compared to the other places. So that's important to keep in mind. Secondly, I have to agree with Mr. Vaughan, and that is failure of the prior councils was not to allow the venue tax to get back into the general fund so it could be allocated appropriately for the needs of the city. So we're not talking about 1.1, we're talking about $1.86 million in venue tax. And I think that's the real issue. So we can talk about essentially a penny here, a penny there, and that's fine, but the real issue is getting that 1.86 million back into the general fund so that we can address the needs that we have in the city. The needs that we have in the city. The golf course is flush with money, $3.5 million in a reserve fund. I would ask Randy exactly what is the money from our general fund that's actually going to streets this year. It'll be nowhere near that amount for what they're doing for a street repair. So we have the bond issue that's coming up to $6 million and in this coming year to fix streets. But what are we doing to keep the streets from getting in the shape that we have 93 streets that need repair? And the answer to that is there's very little in the general fund that's being applied there. And so basically we're also going to be tagged very, very soon with an expansion of public works. It's going to be a multi-million-dollar project. Again, that will become an issue or a greater tax burden that the citizens have to cover, a debt that we can't get out of it. It comes from ad valorem taxes. So basically, the issue before council really is to get the venue tax back into the general fund and then allow council to assess the priorities. And let's stop this, it's going to be a penny increase, penny decrease thing. It's real money for real residents that have a median income of $33,000 per year for a single resident. So it makes sense to allow people to keep as much money as they can, and it makes sense to move the venue tax back to the general fund. I know it's going to cost $7,000 or $8,000 to put it on the ballot, but that's what we need right now. I have confidence that somehow you, even though you started in 2019, and you've had a course at your hand at running the golf course operations. I have confidence that you will appreciate the fact that the golf course is either going to generate sustainable income or not. Okay, and that's part of the issue, and that's essentially on your plate to resolve that. Council, as a citizen, we have made recommendations to come up for municipal course managers to come on and give a discussion, but the city has denied even they're coming to present issues about how to perhaps improve our golf course operations. So the issue is twofold. We need the money in the general fund. It can be allocated to the golf course. That doesn't prevent it from being allocated to the golf course. So basically, I would like to, I can't do it at this point in time, I guess, in the meeting, but essentially, it has to go before the people. Allow them to ask them if they want to reallocate that $1.86 million. That'll bring the tax rate down to 5% or less, 0.5% or less, using your nickel and dime analogies, just a little bit here, just a little bit increase here. That's enough. That's how many times $200,000 to 1.86 million. So that will bring it down that much more. So basically, let's just bring it to the people. Okay, let's put it on the agenda, move it to the people, get it back to the general fund, use it for our needs, and basically, I'm not trying to close the golf course. I'm trying to make sure the golf course is well managed. Thank you, Mr. Burke.
Thank you very much. Christine had a comment to make, I'm not sure.
Yes, sir. Now, I know Councilmember Vaughan, you said that in the fund balance, there's approximately $3.3 million for the golf course. That's correct as an assumption for the end of this fiscal year. However, the fund balance policy is 6 months. So that really only leaves maybe 900,000 to $1 million, and one catastrophic event could wipe all of that out. So it's just something else to consider before we tell everyone that the golf course has all of this money. They really don't, because per the council, we have a fund balance policy that says they have to have 6 months reserved. That was all.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah. As I was reviewing the budget, I really looked at it to see, is there anything glaring that I feel like we're spending money inappropriately on? And I felt like everybody came back in with very reasonable requests that they feel like they need to have, that's required to serve the people and to serve the residents and to serve the businesses. And when I think about, when I hear Councilmember Rubal talking about the venue tax, I'm not looking at maybe we can get it on the budget, on the ballot in November, and maybe it will pass, but we're gonna have to put language in there that it might just go away and we might not have it. So we can't bank on that decision at all. We have to go into this budget and approve this budget based on the conditions as they exist right now, not what some people, getting rid of the venue tax, reallocating it. So as I'm looking at this, I really am considering things like, do I feel like there's things that we could put off? And in my mind, all of the things that were requested seemed like it's not kicking the can, it's being proactive, it's not going crazy and doing all kinds of projects, it's doing the projects that we need to peel off this year. I know we've always got the reserves and managing to those levels, and I'm probably a little more conservative than Councilmember Vaughan is on those. Because I'm afraid of one catastrophic event. We're right outside of Randolph. We don't have the backup of sales tax revenue to just kind of meet those needs. And so I'm always concerned that something could happen that we need to be cautious. But I'm open to those discussions on, do we reduce those reserves a little bit? But in general, I'm not going to think about, as we're working through this and our tax rates, the possibility of what could happen with the venue tax if we choose to put it on the ballot. I just think that that's premature, and it would muddy the water for this budget meeting. I think if that's a conversation that we have, then let's have it. But I don't think it's going to impact this year. So that's all.
So just to close the loop on the sales tax, I think we're getting a pretty healthy amount of sales tax now. The problem is we've handcuffed ourselves and said half of it has to go to the golf course and EDC. So we don't have very much available to us. But now we have this lever that the attorney says we can pull on the venue tax to pull it back in. And there is $3.5 million in the golf course on page 2, as you mentioned, but we don't have to give it the 1.1. It has some money to spend, and then next year we're going to get another 1.8 venue tax that we could dump in the golf course if we chose to. So choosing not to give it to it this year doesn't hamstring the golf course or take it below what we said we wanted the reserves to be. And I guess it's just you kind of mentioned about cutting anything in the budget, and no one's even mentioning that. I mean, then this is an opportunity for the city to have everything they've asked for, us not to nitpick it and just tweak some of that, how the revenue is allocated. And even if we do say we want to keep this for the golf course, I still think we should leave it in the venue tax fund and not give it to it, and have it come and ask and present an argument of why it needs the venue tax. But leave it there in case it wants to come ask for it, rather than giving it to it in advance for however it wants to spend it, but bringing it back to us when that time comes.
Yes, so you mentioned that during the meeting, so I did call the comptroller's office to request some guidance on venue tax. And they recommended that whatever we collect, it goes to what it's supposed to go to, parks or the golf course. They recommended not leaving it in a fund by itself to accrue interest. But I did speak to the comptroller's office to confirm. So leaving it in the fund is not an option. Council can decide on the other options, but leaving it in the fund is not one we can do.
And Mr. Mayor, I appreciate all of the discussion regarding that, but the presentation that we have right now is on the split as it supports the budget presentation. So if we could circle back and get on topic with that, I think it will be beneficial for everyone.
So the proposed tax rate right now is the no new revenue is what is proposed by the city, is that correct?
The budget was developed on the no new tax rate. That's a pretty standard procedure. If council wants to offer adjustments, we'll accept that guidance from you and just tell us what, and we'll come back with recommendations.
Now, when you say adjustments, you're requesting for a dollar amount or a specific rate?
Well, you have to give us an indication of what rate you're comfortable with, whether it's the no new revenue or the current rate or any other rate that we presented or a particular rate. And if you give us that information, then we'll come back with you at a later date and tell you what items in the current budget would have to be postponed. Using the word postpone because we don't cut the budget, we only postpone the capital purchases. What items would have to be postponed in order to make the budget or the tax rate that you're.
So by postponing it means we're just kicking the can down the road for those items that are, just want to clarify that. Ms. Bulman, you have a question?
Just bring it back. I would, if you want my, our opinion, my opinion personally is I would like to see a lower option besides the 51,938. I would like to see, I don't know, I'm not great with numbers. Let's go, what was the other one on here? Let's go 50 cents, 9,382.
Okay, and so I know that maybe some people might have taken offense to why Mateo was stating that 1 penny equals 200,000, because that's what you're cutting. So if you're going from 0.51 to 0.509, I think you said, then you're asking staff to go back and remove or postpone $200,000 worth of purchases in the budget. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, that's why we have the penny in there. So this is a good example, and she's used the data appropriately. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. So that would be that's my personal, not anyone else, it's just my personal. I would like to see a lower at possibly 50 cents, 9,382.
I'm not asking you to round it off to all the zeros like I've done in the past.
Thank you, sir.
I do appreciate the no new revenue rate myself. Basically, it gets us basically, we put the running of the city in your hands. And this is where you've turned around and said, this is what's going to work best for the city. Chief's not going crazy over there. Thank God the fire department's not going crazy. So I feel like y'all are doing a good job of maintaining the level of services that we expect to see. So I like the no new revenue. Thank you.
Well, I kind of have to echo Bear the way you explained it. We've seen you work with the departments. We've seen you go over these numbers. You've gone over these numbers with us. I really do believe that they have not put any, as some people like to say, fluff in it. Our city needs to be able to function. A no new revenue makes sense. It's not that much more for residents. Our residents expect high quality from our city. I think cutting 200,000 is a lot. So I'm supporting the no new revenue.
Let's pause for a minute.
Is this right?
You didn't say anything.
I think it was me. You're welcome.
It's going to be hanging on
Just there was a personal emergency. We'll be with you in just a second.
So that's all the increase for 300,000.
I was looking on the list. Where was it? I was checking on it. conference, on the chair, on the outside. I'm out here.
Six alternatives.
This is relatively the same meeting. Who's going to include it?
We're still paying taxes. Because the younger, they're not having the kind of money they used
Well, it's just like
You scared her so much that he had to run.
Not until he took his wallet though, because he was worried about it. Oh, it's you? It's shady group here.
Here we go.
Okay. Emergency's over. Okay, where we're sitting at right now is we have a tax rate consensus for some of 509,382 and a 519,382, 1 penny being different. That's what I understand, right? And before we go to a vote, I have a pretty good answer.
We're not voting tonight, so we're just having a discussion. Thank you.
Sorry, before we go for a complete consensus, my apologies, just use the word. I have pretty much sure this is going to be 3 and 3. I'm going to make a recommendation that we go in with the proposal, what would be the ramifications with the $200,000 loss? What would be the ramifications that you probably have to cut?
$200,000. That's why we said it.
What
This is
would
the
we
current
have to cut?
budget. Every penny, and she's recommending a penny, would be cutting $200,000. If you're asking which items would we cut?
What the impact would be from the, I guess, by department, which departments would be impacted the most by that?
Well, it's always going to be the big three, and that's police, fire, and public works.
And as
They
long
make
as-
up the majority of the budget. And remember, now we're talking general fund. We're not talking utilities and sewer and golf. We're talking the general fund. They have between, I don't remember the amount, it's on your sheet, 74% of the budget. They're 80% of our budget. And so the biggest capital items and equipment replacement fall within there. And we looked at everybody's budget. So they've given Ms. Green a list that if something is if it requires us to postpone something, each one of them has given us their recommendations for their department. And if we are given that direction, then we'll go back as a staff and we'll meet together and we'll come to a consensus amongst ourselves what's going to be postponed. And then you'll see it back again on next year's budget.
Well, with that being said, I've got two proposals in there. I am really of the opinion that kicking the can down the road where we know the cost of inflation is going up every year anyway, and the cost of goods is going up, if we have the opportunity to pay for it now and save it instead of kicking it down the road and hoping we have money available next year, our next generation or the next council after this right here would have to fund those items, and I guess it's just going to multiply each down there. We're going to get further and further behind. That's just one man's opinion. I'm taking a look at the budget process with income. The revenue tax is not free money. It is actually budgeted money that goes in there, but this is based upon the property tax itself. And we should not become dependent upon the revenue tax. That's just my opinion at this point in time. So we need to come to a consensus here of which way you want to go. Spot?
I mean, I could probably support Ms. Bulman's proposal, and I think there's a little bit of a confusion here. We're not talking about cutting anything. We're just talking about not giving the golf course as much and having to use
No,
some of
that's
its.
not what we're discussing.
That's what I'm discussing. Let me restate. That's what I'm discussing, is nothing needs to be cut. We're not kicking the can. We're just saying the golf course use some of your fund balance for now and let the general fund have that revenue.
Unfortunately, that's not the agenda though. It will be property tax cut is what it will be, $200,000.
Right.
Yes, I mean, that's
And then
what
we
it
can
is.
amend the budget separately.
Yeah, that's $200,000 that the city will not have to utilize for purchases or whatever the case may be. It's not going to be made up by some other funds. It's going to be, you're going to be $200,000 deficit from the budget. And that's what you're proposing.
That's not what I'm proposing. That's obviously what you're proposing.
No, I'm not proposing it. I'm stating if you go with 509, you're proposing a $200,000 cut from the budget.
I mean, we'll have to disagree, I guess.
Okay, I mean, we can disagree, but it's still, I mean, from 519 to 509, that's still, that's one penny, that's $200,000 that comes from the budget. Did I misquote that?
No, sir, but I understand what Mr. Vaughan is saying. I actually believe you're talking about two separate things. He's indicating that there is more funds from the venue tax that could be moved over to the general fund and therefore make up that $200,000 difference. And that is a true statement. However, if you do that, then all you're really doing is postponing a capital improvement on the golf course. Because remember, they have $600,000 in capital improvements there. So you would just be foregoing a golf course capital improvement or equipment replacement to make up the difference in the general fund. So either way, you're postponing something.
And you'd have to make up that $200,000 that you transferred from the venue tax over at the whole time.
The only other option would be if we use fund balance, but again, that it's going to reduce our fund balance to a level that if one thing happened, it could very well wipe out what we have additional to the fund balance.
Yeah, comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it not possible to provide a budget $200,000 less, and then when we see what the actual numbers are, to do add-ins rather than add-outs? So basically, we sort of got caught in this year in that we have the deferred, we have put $500,000+ toward the fire truck because essentially we didn't have a program budget to the fire truck replacement. And so that's sort of a little bit of a two-edged sword. We allocated the money this year from the general fund for the capital improvement program to offset when the fire trucks do come. And basically within the capital improvements expenses, There are some items that can be changed. It doesn't have to come from police and fire or Randy's servicing the streets. We have other departments that can take that. Basically, I kind of remind the council here that one thing, just for example, for the library's operational costs, we're still paying debt on the library for what, I think it's $220,000 or $230,000 a year.
$23,000 a year.
And we'll be paying that debt for another.
2036.
That's right, until 2034?
2034,
whatever.
10 more years, sir.
So basically, when we consider our funding the library, doesn't upfront include that cost whenever we look at their budget. I'm not saying defund the library, I'm saying don't increase the funding of the library as much this year. So there are non-essential departments that still can advance.
Mr. Bulman, may I interject? I apologize, but the subject here is they would pick the amount where the cuts are. We don't pay that. We make come to the conclusion we either go with the recommended by the city or come with an alternate. Any cuts.
I trust their good judgment not to cut critical services, and I support the .5093 amount.
Christine.
Sir, Councilmember Rubal, you mentioned that we have the $550,000 budgeted from the general fund to the capital replacement for the fire trucks. Our original plan was to use $1.9 million that we received that the golf course had paid back to the general fund. But because council recognized that it would affect our fund balance and bring the general fund balance below 12 months, they didn't allow us to do that. So the next best thing was to then say, okay, then we will budget for every year that we can, use whatever monies we have, and then at the end of it, there'll still be a small loan that's required, but it would be paying for maybe 5 years as opposed to 20 a year and paying a bond or issuing a bond for it. But we did have a plan in place. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do it.
I appreciate it.
The question here is now what the budget. Let's go with the budget, not the monies associated with the budget. So let's do with the consensus. 509 is the proposed down there. 509. Your opinion?
I'm happy with the known revenue.
Yes. That's right.
I'm happy with the known revenue.
And you're agreeing with the 509, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
No new revenue.
No new revenue. And I have to take it down to stupid level. Isn't it coming out to be like $12 a month on a $300,000 home? That it's going up?
$5.68, I think.
$5.46.
On a $300,000 house?
Yes, sir.
No new revenue.
I have to agree. No new revenue is the most appropriate for being financially responsible for the city government, in my recommendation. So, that being said, unless the city can come back with some really good numbers going there, the $200,000, I still think the no new revenue should be the rate.
Thank you for your feedback. I don't know what to say at this point, but thank you.
Thank you.
So maybe sometime in the next 2 weeks, we'll hit the line.
No, we're winning that.
It's something to think about there, so I guess we're going to have to leave.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Can we move on now? Are you making some notes? Are you ready to go?
Yes, we're ready to go, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh.
This is hot stuff, you guys understand, we've got a lot of consideration going here. Good discussion and actually some good actions. Tab E, Resolution 2. Nine 26B 2400, resolution amending the property access clean energy at PACE.
Yes, a very unusual and gracious program from the state of Texas. AUG is our sponsoring agency. They could not be here, so I have to say we've got to step up here. We have Mr. Belk here, and he is going to give you just a brief overview because I recognize that more than half of you were not here when we originally adopted the PACE program. So we're going to give you an overview, and here's why. All of you go out and about amongst the city, and you know business people and commercial property owners. And this is a great program for them should they decide that they would like to make some capital improvements to their buildings. So I would like for all of us to be educated on it, not just the staff. So if somebody mentions their business to you, you can send them back to us and we'll go through the PACE program with them. So here's your education. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, Mayor Maxwell, council members. My name is Jack Belt, as she said. I'm the program liaison for Texas PACE Authority for the Central Texas area. We partner with ACOG to administer the PACE programs in that region. In addition, we also are program administrators for almost 100 other PACE programs through the state of Texas. We also right now have 2 in progress that we're about to get approved on. One is your neighbor city of Converse, the other is Wilson County. So with that, we'll jump into it. It was enacted in 2013. It allows cities to adopt a PACE program to allow long-term financing on energy and water high-efficiency systems that reduces demand, encourages conservation, and lowers utility bills. As I said before, we administrate it. No time, personnel, or funds are required of the city. And that's all prescribed in the interlocal agreement. The first 2 things you need to know about it, very general, very basic, is that PACE financing decreases utility costs, increases operating income. Usually a building that needs to have upgraded technology on the water and energy systems, it's very difficult to get more than a 5 to 7 year loan on that. So what happens is the payment for that equipment crushes your cash flow in the early years of that. What this does basically is take 100% financing for that equipment and machinery, all the installation, and it spreads it out over the useful life of the equipment. And that can be 15 to 25 years. We are ACOG, that cutout there shows where we are in ACOG and all the different programs we have in effect right now. And shows the rest of the state. What properties are eligible to be commercial properties, industrial, agricultural, nonprofit, and multifamily projects that are 5 units or more. As I said, the benefits are it's 100% long-term financing with competitive private financing. It's not government financing. And the magic in all of this is that the security of that loan is increased by putting an assessment on a property from the local government. So that's what makes it happen. Also, the sustainability benefits, you have energy efficiency, water conservation, demand reduction, and if you create and generate power on site, which is called distributed generation, the loan program also works to help pay for that. So the people involved, the groups involved, as I said, you have the cities and the counties, ACOG, Texas PACE Authority, which is us. We work step by step all the way through with capital providers, property owners, and service providers, contractors. There are also economic development benefits to this program. It makes commercial buildings more competitive. It attracts new businesses, which attract new jobs. It also increases activity in that immediate area. There are also tax benefits. Increased operating income raises the value of these buildings. Even if it's cost approach from the CAD, where the cost of this equipment adds to the value of that building to reproduce it. PACE programs also support your municipal sustainability programs, which goes a long way to help the overall reduce stress on the grid and conserve water resources. The process is 10 steps. I'm not going to drag you through all of them, but basically we are involved with ACOG through every one of these steps with those parties. We're also very involved after step 10 all the way through until that assessment and loan is paid off. We monitor compliance. We're constantly meeting with the owners, the people who get the loan, any other kind of trouble that comes up, we do the troubleshooting and monitoring on that. Another benefit is that lower utility bills makes multifamily housing more affordable. If a PACE assessment is on a property and that property is sold, it stays on the property, but it also can be paid off. And how that's handled is a negotiation between the new buyer and the seller. We don't get involved with that. So you're not stuck with it. But again, the longer term payoff eliminates that short term front loaded crushing of cash flow, and the term is based on the useful life of the equipment. These are all the type of improvements. I won't read all of them there, but basically anything that goes to help conserve energy, lower demand, conserve water, would qualify. That would include heavy industrial property that's involved in the manufacturing process, not just the water and sewer for tenants or residents in the properties. So local case studies, the last property that we did, and this is also the largest PACE loan we've done in Texas to date. It's $48 million was the PACE element on it. It's a Monarch Hotel in Hemisphere. It's done by the Zachary Group. The capital provider was Greenworks. There are multiple national as well as local lenders who specialize in PACE lending. We always try to find a local group first. It also works on new and old buildings. The Allen in San Antonio is an old two-story building brought back to life. Their assessment was about $1.5 million. The Intercontinental Hotel in San Antonio, which has been in the media a lot lately, is getting ready to reopen at the end of the summer. They did an assessment for $28 million. It used to be the old Wyndham, and you can see on that photo there, they still have their old sign. That's getting ready to go. And then to bring it back down to earth, it also works for older, smaller properties. These two are in Castroville with assessments of about $400,000 and about $700,000. So it does provide benefits for those. Now, PACE in a Box is a toolkit of recommendations, templates, everything you need to know about how to do a PACE program. It creates a uniform, consistent program, user-friendly, scalable. It's administered by a nonprofit, which is us in ACOG. It's focused on taking care and being your representative and making sure the process is going according to how it's supposed to go. It's a free market program with decision power in the hands of property owners. It's a voluntary basis. So thank you for your time. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions? Don't think there's any other questions and everything.
All right.
So I'll call for a vote. Call for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Call for discussion. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Putt.
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Thank you for your patience.
All right, so staff, we market it a lot, especially to the apartment complexes when the owners come in because they typically have to make a lot of capital improvements. HUD has been the stall on that now that the PACE program has worked everything out with the HUD on who's the primary lender and who's the secondary. We really hope that we can get some projects here in the Universal State. It also works good for a lot of our older buildings in the Long Aviation District as well. Bring in those property owners. Thank you.
Tab F, interlocal agreement with Harris County Department of Education.
Purchasing co-op with pre-qualified contractors that we'd like to take advantage of, and so we are requesting council approval to join that purchasing co-op.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Call for a vote.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick.
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman.
Aye.
Councilmember Putt.
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Tab H, board and commission appointment.
Oh, I'm sorry, I think
Oh,
you
I'm
missed
sorry, I'm sorry, I
drive.
skipped one. Tab G. You guys got me excited here.
We're almost
Bid
done, I
acceptance for the
promise.
CDBG.
Yes, so this is our CDBG project. It is in the forthcoming budget, and this is to award that contract to D&D contractors with the best base bid totaling $710,056.17. And the street project is a sewer project, right?
No, it's Hillview Street Reconstruction.
Oh, street reconstruction for Hillview, which is behind the library, in case you don't know. And so we're asking council to award the contract to D&D contractors.
Call for motion. Motion. Second.
Was it Councilmember Putt?
Yes. Discussion? Yes.
I guess did D&D do Madrid and Balboa?
Madrid and Balboa.
So over in Coronado, the streets that were done like 16 through 18.
They did Balboa, yes, and they did Madrid, correct.
I didn't get a ringing endorsement from the engineer on them, and they kind of said that you guys like them. And so it wasn't super clear if they like them too.
Which engineer?
The one that
Gibbler.
opened the bids. Gibbler, yeah, thank you.
They don't give an engineering opinion. I think they just do the qualifications.
Yeah, they did Ivy. Ivy was the last one they just did for us.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we had no issues with it.
Well, there's been some complaints about Madrid and Balboa, like maybe it wasn't done the right way, or like it's not great. I don't know streets very well. But how do we?
They haven't called me.
So how do we ensure quality? So if there's any issue, like who inspects it, and how do we make sure that they're going to do a good job on it?
Well, we have a design engineer that's involved there in the whole process of it. I'm involved in it. I have a project manager involved in it. So it always is done right because it's done to our city specs. That we are geotechnical involved the whole time. It's really, it could be an individual complaint and stuff like that, but for the most part, it's built right. It's built to, we have one of the best standards on road construction for our area. We have a high PI. Coronado is the worst area when it comes to soil conditions in our city. I can tell you that for a fact. That is ground that moves all the time in that particular neighborhood. So it'll be a solid rock. But when it comes to streets in our neighborhood, the ones that move the most is my Coronado subdivision, and then on the west side, the Meadowland and White Crossing area is my other things that we have a lot of movement in service. North Lake is the other one, that's what.
Philosophically, and we talk about this even when we do our bond project, everybody wants their street done until their street is under construction and they realize how disruptive it is to life. Then it's, when is it gonna be done? It's not done right, hurry up and get it done. So I have to give credit to Randy and his crews, because when we have street projects, they are out there every day. And as soon as their trucks pulls up, they are talking to residents and trying to soothe their feelings towards the street project. So, but if somebody has a particular project or problem, or they have an area of expertise that they think that we don't have, and they want to contact Randy about it, then they should. And you should be forwarding them to Randy, so we can discuss that with them.
Yes, ma'am.
I just have one question that
Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna make you answer, so I don't have to answer it to everyone else who asked me. And it's not, I don't mean this in a mean way or anything at all. Is there a reason? I realize that D&D came in a little bit lower. We've used them multiple times. Is there a reason? Would you like to tell everyone why you like to choose D&D?
It isn't that I like to
In a nice
choose.
way.
We're fortunate that they were our low bidder.
Okay.
There's some good contractors and there's some bad contractors.
All of these have worked in the city before. I recognize every name.
Oh, they have? Yeah, it would be nice to tell people that. Like, I just didn't, I don't know, you know what I mean? But people ask, like, why does D&D continually get picked even though they were only slightly lower this time? I would assume because you have a good relationship with them, but I'm not going to assume anything. You tell me.
I would say there's one contractor down here that I do not favor, but the rest of them I do. But it isn't, we don't pick favorites. It's just that we do want the ones, because
The big companies that I used to always have in our city, the Yantis, the BK Knowltons, the bigger ones, they're chasing the new subdivision work. So they're just chasing that. So I really need these contractors that are willing to do municipal government work. And you can see which ones that are bidding these type of projects. But the bigger contractors won't come because that's easy to move. They don't want to deal with the residents and the vehicles and all that stuff. So, but no, we're just fortunate. I mean, Easyville, if they were low, I wouldn't have no problem. D&D, obviously. So yeah, we got a J3. J3 did Parkby for us. They're one of the contractors that done. And Easyville did a lot of our storm drain in the Parkby area. So.
They also did a good portion of Pat Booker Road project in terms of the signalization system that we have in the city. So yeah, so I recognize all of this.
And we want to work with good contractors that don't give us a lot of problems. And fortunately, we've had these that we've been working with lately don't give them heartburn. So.
Thanks. Thank you. Good question.
Call for the vote.
Councilmember Putt?
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman?
Aye.
Councilmember Rubal?
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And tab H, Board of Commission appointment.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, you went through and did your interviews, and we tried to do our best to make sure that we filled every open seat or every expired seat, and unfortunately on the BOA, we missed one. The mayor had already done his interviews and said that there was an opening that he would like to place Miss Mary Flack. She is here this evening, and she has agreed to take that open seat, so we just need council approval so that we have a full Board of Adjustments to work from.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion?
Glutton for punishment, or?
There is that. Just trying to get involved with the city.
I understand. Thank you, that's all.
Call for the vote.
Councilmember Vaughan?
Aye.
Councilmember Bulman?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitzpatrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby?
Aye.
Councilmember Putt?
Absolutely aye.
Councilmember Rubal?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, adjournment.
Okay, where's the poll? I didn't get my notification of the time, so that's.
Oh.
Promising.